but I agree writing more details is a lot harder, and I'm going to talk about it. Okay, I'm now going to talk about introductions, and we'll definitely have a lot of practice with that too. So your introduction needs to do several things. It needs to catch your reader's interest, introduce your topic, and then it also needs to provide your thesis statement. And your thesis statement might include a plan of development, but it might not. Okay, so we're going to write some thesis statement or some introductions. I'm going to start by looking at the introduction that we had in the example essay about Rana. This strategy for writing an introduction was called using an anecdote or a brief story. In this case, the story was about Rana, a student in writing 4. Did you think this was an interesting story? Did it catch your attention? That was the goal. It was to make it personal. Make it sort of like you want to know what happens, what's the end, and you connect to the topic. Okay, so this, how many sentences are actually about Rana? I'm just going to mark them here, okay? These first 1, 2, 3 sentences are only about Rana. Then we have sort of transition sentences before we go to the thesis. This cat's going to have before we go to the thesis. So what does that mean? It means that we have more general information before we go to the thesis. So you see that after the sentences about Rana, we need to provide 2 more general transition statements. So this is the hook. These 2 sentences many students share is a transition, and then we have the thesis. Okay, so there are some different ways that you can do your introduction. Number 3 is one way, an anecdote or brief story, but there are other ways that you can do an introduction. So I'm going to show you some examples of some of these ways, okay? The first one, number 1, begin with a broad, general statement of the topic and narrow it to the thesis statement. So let me show you how you could do a thesis or an introduction in that way. Okay, begin with a broad general statement of the topic and narrow it to the thesis statement. I will give you an example of this. Every class has assignments. Okay, this is a very, very general statement. And every class has assignments, okay? That is true, but it is very, very general. And now we need to make it more narrow. So after we say every class has assignments, okay? Teachers assign them to help students learn, okay? Writing classes are no exception. That means they're not different. Okay, so every class has assignments, very general. Teachers assign them to help students learn, still general. Writing classes are no exception. This is writing classes, so it's a little bit more specific. Okay, we could now go directly to the thesis. There are several different types of assignments that we do in Writing 4 class that contribute to our learning in different ways. Okay, this introduction style is sometimes called a funnel. Funnel is like this. Okay, the first one is very general. Every class has assignments. Then writing classes, and then Writing 4 class. So we move from very general, so we move from very general, which would be like all classes. Okay, then we move to writing classes, all writing classes, and then we move to Writing 4 and our thesis. Okay, that's one way that we can do it. Okay, number 2 is to start with a contrasting idea, a contrasting or opposite idea. Okay, a contrasting idea means an opposite idea. This one doesn't maybe work quite so well, but I will try it anyway. Okay, imagine a class that does not have any assignments. You go to class, sit there, listen, and go home, okay? You might not learn very much in this class, okay? In contrast, writing for class has many assignments, okay? And then we can have the thesis. There are several different types of assignments that we do in writing for class that contribute to our learning in different ways, okay? For this one, the most important word is in contrast. Before in contrast, we have the opposite idea from our idea, okay? After in contrast, we have what we believe, okay? So far you have seen three different types of introductions, okay? Different introductions work better for different essays. Different introductions work better for different essays. That's a very important point, okay? So for example, I think this contrasting idea, it works for many types of essays. It doesn't work great in this essay. It's okay, but it's not great, okay? Let's look at the last three different ways, okay? Number 4 is use a quotation. A quotation is something that you know or that you find on the internet. Quotation that everyone knows, like practice makes perfect. You don't have to cite the source. Otherwise, you should say where it came from. Where did the introduction, or where did the quote come from? Give if not well known. Okay, so here's my quotation. Practice makes perfect. Makes perfect. Now I need to explain it a little bit. This quotation shows need to practice something, practice a skill to get better at it. This is also for writing, and in writing class, we practice assignments to get better writing. There are several different types of assignments that we do in writing for class that contribute to our learning in different ways. Okay, so this is a good way to use a quotation. Maybe you want to use a quotation in your essay. Don't spend 2 hours trying to find the perfect quotation, because it will drive you crazy. Number 5, provide historical information about your topic. Okay. History teachers have given assignments to students in the olden days. Teachers would give assignments on chalkboards or pen and paper. Now, we mostly use computers for assignments. And then you can see there are several different types of assignments that we do. Okay, so I mean, does history really work for this topic? Maybe not as well, but you can get the general idea about it. Okay, number 6 is to ask one or more questions. Okay, have you ever taken a writing class? If so, did you have a lot of homework? Okay, what kind of homework did you have? Is someone going to answer these questions? No, these are called rhetorical questions. The purpose of these questions is to hook your reader. Remember, a hook is pictured in your book. It's like this to catch a fish. So when someone asks you, have you ever taken a writing class? And you think, oh, yes, I have. It makes you interested in the topic automatically. So this would be okay to begin your essay like this, asking one or more questions. So I showed 6 different types of introductions. today, okay? they all have the same thesis. They all have the same thesis, but they are different styles.